Just realized I even have it on the wrong one. Hold on. There we go. All right, perfect. So this should have been going up for about a minute. Right just about. I'm waiting for this to kind of sync up on my computer. All right, there we go. It's currently still... Okay, all right, perfect. There it goes. Finally. All right. Thank God. That finally worked. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to On Point Politics. Today, I'm basically going to be talking about what I talked about in my last video, but I kind of want to have a live discussion with the chat because this is going to be a pretty controversial political take from me. But I truly think this is the reason why he's going to be DOA in 2024. Like, I have a very strong conviction about it. I've gone from Biden can still win to Biden cannot win anymore. Like, it is that big of a shift. And I felt like it deserved a live stream because I really don't. I want to see what you guys think about my take. And I'm trying to be as empirical as possible, but I think that this really dooms his chances. I think it's a super bad look. It's not a good look for him at all. And I'm going to explain why on multiple fronts why it's not a bad look. Because it's not just the fact that he's signing the bill. Like, that's because I'm really trying to really go into this. It's not just the fact that he signed a bill and a bunch of teenagers are going to get mad. There are serious economic implications for this. Not only that, this app is the app that helped him in 2020 beat Trump. If it wasn't for TikTok, I'm almost 100% certain he wouldn't have beaten Trump. Even with everything being exactly the same, if it was not for TikTok, he would have not beaten Trump. I don't think that would have been the case. And I think what it was able to do is that young voters, or a specific coalition of people, which tend to be more middle class, higher class citizens, some form of that coalition was able to be built within the app, and the edits would be on there and things like that. Like, Biden just had the momentum on the app 4 years ago. Now, it's the opposite. It's the exact opposite. Trump and RFK have the momentum from TikTok. And I've kind of talked about this before, not on the channel, but I've talked about this where I've said that, social media is going to really sway the young vote, especially more the young vote, rather much than like the older vote, for example. It's just that it's been a long time where, or ever really, since we've gotten to the social media age, where everybody had there was a Republican candidate that actually had the momentum from social media. That's never been the case. Trump in 2016 didn't have the momentum with social media. Neither did he in 2020. He definitely didn't have that in 2020. But now he did. And so the major issue with this is that now Biden signed a bill that's going to basically what it is. And I was right because I had talked about this in my video. I hadn't really seen this yet. I actually saw the official statement from the founder of TikTok and the CEO of TikTok just not that long ago after I recorded my video earlier today. But he was basically talking about how it's like the Biden basically did it so the company has a year to find a new owner, which is what this article talks about. So the thing with that is, okay, well, it's not going to be banned right now, but it's the fact that he did it. It's the fact that he signed the bill and let it go through is a bad look. And not only that, the compiling effect of this is that this was a part of a big bill that had to do with more Ukraine funding, more Israel funding, and more funding to Taiwan. And sending foreign aid is not a popular thing right now. It's not a thing. It is not a thing right now. It's not popular whatsoever. Before, it was almost kind of a non-issue. It used to be a very micro issue for some voters. It probably was like 0.5, maybe even 1% of the electorate's issue at that. Now, it's a significant problem, and I actually think African American voters are the demographic that actually approve of this the least. And so because of that, there is a major problem for Biden here. I genuinely think he's screwed now. I don't think he has any path to 270 electoral votes. And I'm going to show you guys how he doesn't have a path to 270. I'm going to show you exactly how he does not have it. Number one, his coalition was already extremely unstable. Very, very unstable coalition at that. Very unstable coalition. And the reason why is because he had everything go right for him in 2020 and everything go wrong for Trump, and he barely won. And the only reason why he was able to win is because there was ridiculously high turnout back then. And the problem is that now, before usually the Democrat would do better in registered voter polling. So when you look at likely voter polls and registered voter polls are pretty much polls that look at the entire electorate regardless of how likely they are to vote. And likely voters basically kind of find the people who are for sure going to vote on election day. And the problem is that usually Biden would do better with that demographic in 2020. Now it's the opposite. Trump actually does better in registered voting polls. And that's because when they've polled new voters, they overwhelmingly support Donald Trump. So the more turnout there is, the better it's actually going to be for Trump. So if we actually match 2020 turnout, Trump is going to probably beat him by a lot. More than I think he's going to beat him by. He'd probably win 350 electoral college votes. If we have 2020 level turnout, Trump would probably beat him by over 350 electoral votes. I actually think Trump would probably win Colorado at that point. However, I don't think we're going to have this level of turnout. Now, do I think it's going to be as low as some people are thinking? No, I don't think either one of them is going to get below 670 million, and I don't even think Biden's going to drop below 70 million. I mean, if he does, then whoa, womp womp. I don't think that I don't think Biden's going to drop below 70 million votes, and I definitely don't think Trump's going to drop below 70 million unless turnout is historically bad. But I just think that Biden is going to lose millions of votes compared to last time. Even Obama, who was a somewhat, you could disagree with him on policy and on potential character, but he was a pretty charismatic dude. Like, we can't pretend that we can't pretend he was a vegetable. We can't pretend that Obama was Biden. We can't pretend that Obama didn't have aura. He did. It's just the truth. And that basically carried him in 2012. I guarantee you, if Obama just didn't have charisma that appealed nationwide, he probably would have lost 2012. More than likely he did. I definitely did. Now, me saying that Biden is DOA is basically looking at all the factors plus TikTok. And what I mean by factors is how well the RNC is actually fundraising for Trump now, and how they're trying to get poll watchers out, and how they actually got them, and how they're putting out a mass mail-in voting operation system for Donald Trump. That already gave him the huge leg up to have a better chance at winning. And I thought that him polling really well with Hispanic and African Americans was a really good thing. The one thing I was looking for Biden that I thought was a horrible sign for him was the young voter polling. That I thought was absolutely, it was the biggest warning sign for him, because with African Americans and Hispanics, he could underperform with them, but if whites shift like a point or two left, it cancels everything out. So that wasn't really something, unless the polls had Trump and Biden tied with blacks, then I'd be like, okay, yeah, he's DOA, because there's no way he's gonna outperform the polls by 80 points. That's not gonna happen. But at the same time, I was still a little bit iffy if Trump was for sure going to win. But with everything on top of Biden's approval rating, on top of Trump still polling relatively well, and actually, if we go and look at Nevada, what's actually quite hilarious is that there was a poll that came out today from Bloomberg, which is not like a random pollster. It's not like, somebody that just came out of left field. If you actually put them in a three-way race, Trump leads by 11 points in Nevada. How are you going to tell me that's a poll? Trump cannot There's no way Trump's going to underperform the polls by 11 points. It's just not. There's no way that's going to happen. There's no way. It cannot happen. There's no way the polls are going to... there's no way. I seriously don't think that Trump can underperform that much. He's ahead by 5 points in Nevada. He's up by 5 in Nevada. That automatically puts Nevada in his column. Because yes, Republicans have been underestimated here before. Or overestimated. But even in that scenario, the problem is that even if you have a margin polling error of 3, he still wins the state. So even if, honestly, if Trump were to underperform the polls by 5, then there's some serious stuff that needs to go on. But if you look at this, the Bloomberg and Morning Consult poll, according to RCP, has Trump up 14 points. For some reason, it says 11 on 538. But he's up by 14 points in Nevada with third-party voters. And that was, if we look at the last poll with the three-way race, he was up by 6 points. So he doubled his lead and then some in Nevada. 14 plus points in Nevada in a three-way race, and he's up by 7.5 in the aggregate. With the most likely matchup, which is with all 5 candidates, I don't think Biden wins Nevada. I can't see him winning it. And if you look at this, right? Like Nevada, I'm almost for sure he's not going to win it. Biden can't win Nevada. And if we look at Georgia, the problem with Georgia is that if we go to the election shuffler, so let's look at that really quick. If we go to the election shuffler, and if we go over here, if we go here and we literally shift the entire state by a point Republican, just 1 point, Trump already wins the election. He wins Georgia, excuse me. He already wins Georgia. He wins that for sure. 100% he wins it if you shift everything by a point. If you select all the counties in Atlanta alone, and you shift everything by a point, I believe he also wins. So you shift everything by a point, he wins the state by 9,000 votes. If you shift all of Atlanta's counties by 1 point, he loses Georgia. Right now, Trump is up in Georgia by 4 in the head-to-head matchup. In 2020, he led the aggregate by 1 on RCP. So he's doing 3 points better than before. And actually, let's just pull it up. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. I have it memorized in my head. Hopefully that's correct. I think it is correct. Yep, I was right. He was up by 1 point and he lost by 0.3. And the RCP aggregate had him at 48.2. He's polling 1.5 points higher than he was in the RCP aggregate. On election day, he's now polling 1.5 points higher in the RCP aggregate. And that actually underestimated his support. He actually ended up getting 1 point higher than now. Now, Biden got severely underestimated in Georgia. He ended up getting underestimated by a few points. But that was when Biden's approval rating was about literally that was when Biden's approval rating was 0% or it was sorry, I'm blanking out, was 52% nationwide. Now his approval rating is 40%. How are you going to tell me that he's going to win Georgia? I can't see him winning that either. And that's a big problem that's a huge problem for him. That's a huge problem for Biden. I can't see him winning there at all. And if we were to go to Arizona, the problem with Arizona is that Trump is up by 5 in Arizona in the head-to-head matchup. If we go to Arizona in 2020 and we look at the polls in Arizona in 2020, Biden was up by almost what he won it by. So the polls here on RCP were actually pretty accurate. He was pretty spot on. It was pretty spot on. Almost. So If the polls underestimate him, or actually overestimate him by 0.6, Trump's supposed to win Arizona by 5. So that, I'd say, maybe leans the state to Trump, but you could even say maybe he's guaranteed to win Arizona too, based out of current polling data. And this is assuming that he's going to have a big fallout with young voters, which I suspect he will because of the TikTok ban. And so that might even put Arizona in his column. He may automatically win Arizona even, which I've always been a person that said, okay, if Biden wins a swing state, it's probably Arizona. But he may not even be able to win Arizona anymore. And with Pennsylvania, Republicans have been surging in voter registration there. They have been surging in voter registration by over 400,000 more votes compared to 2020. And when you look at the polling aggregate, Biden is up by 0.4%. If we go to Pennsylvania, Biden was actually spot on. The aggregate on RCP was actually pretty accurate. A lot of them were, to be honest. A lot of the RCP aggregates were spot on. And Biden's ahead by 0.4%. But again, this is when his approval rating was 52%. Now it's 40%. And in the RCP aggregate, he's polling 2 points lower than where he was before. And Trump's approval rating has only dipped a tiny bit. So Pennsylvania is looking really iffy for Biden too. That's also the problem. And Republicans gained in every single county in registration. Every single one. And they gained more in the city/suburban areas than even in the rural counties. And that's fine, because a lot of the voters who vote for Trump in some of these Rust Belt states tend to be registered Democrats who are now Republican voters that haven't switched their ID. And with Michigan and Wisconsin, usually if you look at this, the Rust Belt has voted together since 1988 and also voted 1988 was the last time that they voted separately. Ever since then, the Rust Belts voted together. Even in 2016, when Trump narrowly won all three, he narrowly won all three. And Biden was able to flip back all three somewhat narrowly. Michigan was a pretty good victory. He actually won Michigan by more than he did in Nevada. Some people tend to overlook that. However, he still ended up flipping it regardless. And so if Trump is basically on point to win Pennsylvania, no pun intended, he more than likely gets Wisconsin and Michigan too, especially since in Pennsylvania, if he's having the demographics to be able to win Pennsylvania by like a point or so, he probably ends up winning Michigan and Wisconsin as well. So his floor may range anywhere from 301 to like 267 or like 270. Like, it's gonna range somewhere here, but I think it's basically it's pretty much impossible for Trump to lose the election now. If things are not looking good demographically for Biden at all in the polls. Now, if we all sit on our asses and don't do anything about it and don't register to vote and don't get people to turn out, then Trump's not gonna have a chance to win. However, if all of that does end up happening, I am pretty confident that Trump's going to end up winning. I would honestly be very confident that Trump ends up winning the next election. I think he'd have a very good chance at winning the election. You know, it's funny because Michigan actually has Trump winning, or CNN actually has Trump winning outright. Like, this is their battleground map, I believe. Their battleground map is this. They have Trump at 272. At least their map from like January or February had Michigan, Georgia, and Nevada like this. This was their battleground map back then. But I think it's going to be pretty hard for Trump to lose now. I think it's going to be pretty hard. Because, guys, if you go to what would it take, right, let's go to our model, right, the new 538 model, which tends to skew their demographics more to the left even. Biden supposedly won, according to this, by 29 points, right? If we look at the latest poll, let's look at the latest national poll. We're just going to do a test on this. So let's go to 538, and let's go to the latest national poll for the election. I'm just curious, because I want to see. Okay, so they're even. So it's YouGov, by the way. It's a YouGov poll, so they'll definitely be polling the young vote for sure. YouGov polls, 2024 crosstabs. I want to look up the crosstabs for these because let's see, where would it be? April 2024, because it's a new poll. Let's see. Also, look, this is a thing too. More people are enthusiastic about Trump than than Biden, which usually it's the other way around. Even for Republicans and Democrats, usually the Democrat has the more enthusiasm, mostly. So that's also a bad sign too. And I'm trying to find these crosstabs for this poll. I don't know where I would be able to find them. But I want to see what their young vote poll is. Biden struggling with young voters. Let's see something. So let's see this article. Let's see what it says. This one doesn't give the full things. How do you type so fast? I used to like really practice typing in middle school. It was like just a thing of mine. Well, either way, guys, let's say, I can't find it right now, but let's say that, he even underperforms with young voters by like 5 points. Trump already wins the election. Like, he already wins, even with 5 points deducted from the young vote. He already loses the election. And a lot of the polls only have Biden up by single digits. That's most of the polls. I can't tell you exactly which ones have what numbers, but I know for a fact the polls have ranged from either Trump being up by like 5 all the way up to Biden being up probably, I think 13 was his biggest lead in one of the polls. Was his biggest lead in one of them. Do I play video games? Not as often as I used to anymore, but I do enjoy video games. That yes. So this goes to show that, and let's say, okay, he's up by 13, right? If he's up by 13 with young voters, Trump's already winning Pennsylvania. So literally based off that logic alone, this is his floor with young votes. This is the highest poll I've seen. That's the highest lead for young voters I've seen for Biden the whole cycle from my recollection. If Trump were to win young votes by 4, which again, I don't think he's going to win the young demographic. I never thought he was. I think now he'll get really close. He'll probably get within less than 5 of them now. I think he will. But if Trump's up by 4, with that demographic alone, he already wins the electoral college and the popular vote's tied. Already. Right out the gate. And that's not even me touching anything else. That's not me even touching any of the other states. So that's also a concern too. It's a big problem for him. Very big problem. If we look, Nevada is actually the closest state on here. He wins Nevada by like 1.7%, basically. But yeah, that's it. I did see that. It is weird that the Bloomberg poll does have Trump winning by 14 in Nevada, but he's winning by 2 in Michigan. That's very weird. I don't know about that. That to me is very strange. It's definitely very interesting. Do I have it national? Yeah, no, I have it on all. I can't see them here. I wonder. I don't think they probably uploaded them yet, to here. So I don't know if they uploaded them on here yet, but still, that's not good. The fact that he's down by 14 points in a poll in Nevada that's already a really bad sign for him. Guys, honestly, I don't know. Look, actually, oh, okay, Alan just posted the crosstabs. Thanks for that. I actually just checked the Discord on my phone. I just noticed he posted the crosstabs for a poll. I don't know if he's in here or not. Pew Research. So Trump's up by 1 in this poll, by the way. So he's up by 1. So I'm going to actually fill these out. He's up by 1, right? Oh, I think the TikTok ban is definitely going to hurt him in the Twin Cities for sure. I think he is. So, if we look at this poll, right, that I have up here, Biden is down in the approval rating. He has a 35% approval rating in this poll, by the way. So if the results are super skewed towards Trump, that's why. And he's up by a point. And he's actually polling at 48% in this poll, and Trump's up at 49%. And his disapproval is 62%. So the lead for Trump with whites is 14. So he gains a point with whites in this poll. He already wins the Electoral College. He already wins. Blacks, he's up by 77 minus 18. He's up by 59% with blacks. So that's already down from here. That already puts Trump winning Michigan and Pennsylvania. He's already at 306. If you look at Hispanics, Trump is down by 8 with Hispanics. By 8 points with Hispanics. That puts Trump at 318 Electoral College votes, which is actually what I have the election at right now. I may end up changing New Mexico, but I did actually have New Mexico flipping in my last projection. Asian voters, Biden's up with them by 23. So that's a 10-point shift away from Trump. That doesn't really move it way too much, but I want to account for all of that. Biden is up with young voters by 21 points in this poll. He's up by 21. And this was probably before the TikTok ban was even accounted for. So that's not good either. Plus 65, Trump is up with these voters by, let's see, because this is what makes the election closer. This is why the polls still have it close, is because he's considerably underperforming with plus 65 voters. That's definitely a reason why the polls have to be closer. If we look at postgrads, that's the problem. This is the issue with this, is because they don't really have, okay, I see white no college, white college, white no college. Yeah, they split it up like that, so that's kind of annoying. No college, it says Trump is up by 16, so that's a big difference. That puts Trump at 341 electoral votes, actually. And they do not weigh by male or female or income at all. And when it comes to college educated, it says that, let's see. The thing is, they only show white college. He's up by 10 with that demographic. So we're going to assume Biden's up by like 20 points. When you plug in those demographics that supposedly have the election as a tie into this model, he's already winning the election by 10 points, and he's up 345 electoral votes to 193. So that's the problem for Biden, is that even with the poll that has only Trump up by 1, which would still give him an electoral college victory, he definitely, it's not looking good. It's really not looking good at all. It's looking super bad for Biden. It's looking really, really bad. Same way how it was looking super bad for Trump in 2020. The way I'm acting about Biden right now, I actually probably would have said that Trump was DOA after the BLM riots. Even when I was kind of looking at that in the 2020 cycle, when Trump was kind of, when the whole 2020 election cycle was still going on, I was like, oh, Trump's going to beat Biden. And then the second the BLM riots happened, I said, Trump's probably not going to win the election anymore. And I was 100% right. And I had been saying that. And I predicted Biden was going to win. Now, I wasn't 100% correct, but I was, 2 states off? Like, give me a break. This is the map that I had back then, which would have had Biden at, or actually theoretically I had the map at this, because I didn't understand that Nebraska 2nd was left trending, and I didn't realize that there were so many people, black people living in Georgia, and that turnout was going to be that high. Like, I was still fairly new to the whole political thing. In Arizona, I had it as still R, so I was within range, and I still had Georgia closer. Like, I had Trump winning Georgia by like 2.5 or something like that. Like, I had Trump pretty close in Georgia. But I didn't realize there was such a big shift that he was going to flip, and I didn't know about polling averages and stuff like that. Like, if I had been looking at polling averages, I would have 100% predicted this election correct. I definitely would have gotten it right, because I was already so much more accurate than most political analysts. Like, I was more right than Let's Talk Elections back then. I was more right than Red Eagle, to be honest, because Red Eagle had the election at Trump winning Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, and I think maybe not Nebraska 2nd, but I think this is what Red Eagle had the election at. So I was already more correct than both of them. The only person who had it more accurate was EP Official, and the person who got it completely correct is Gold Crown Politics, who actually to discuss this with him the other day, and I did an episode with him, like a home team kind of episode with him. But what's funny is that he actually got the entire election right in 2020, because he kind of showed me his model, and he actually kind of showed me like how it works. And there's no way he could have faked being right based on the way the model works. Like, you don't plug in any polling averages or anything like that. You're not plugging anything. The only thing you're doing is you're guessing what the popular vote's going to be, and he did it based off of historic polling error. So he basically averaged all the polls like a month backwards from the election, which gave him a decent lead for Biden. And so he predicted Biden was going to win the popular vote by 5.2. So if he would have gone off the current polling average, he actually probably would have gotten the popular vote even more correct. And since he was within a point of guessing the popular vote correctly, he actually got the entire electoral college correct. Because the way he does it is you need to find where it votes relative to the nation. And then what you do is you basically have the new popular vote and you subtract how much it's going to vote by the nation by a certain amount. So Georgia, he predicted Georgia was going to vote 4.8 points to the right of the nation based on all of the existing polling data and the average shift from like 2008 to 2016. And when he did the predicted popular vote minus the relative shift of the state, he got Georgia right. He predicted Georgia was going to be like a 0.6 win, and it ended up being like a 0.2 win. So Gold Crown Politics was actually the most accurate forecaster that I know of, at least for the 2020 cycle. He's the only one who got it correct, got everything right. And right now he's predicting Trump actually wins pretty big. He actually has the map at this. This is what he currently has the map at, where Trump wins 341, loses New Hampshire, Maine, Illinois, Colorado, New York, New Jersey, but he basically wins everything else. Now, again, do I think the election is going to be a landslide like this? No. I think that more than likely Biden probably holds on to Minnesota. He wins Virginia. And so realistically, this is where I have my map at right now. And New Mexico is a state that a lot of people have been telling me, like, oh, well, is Trump going to really do that much better there? Well, I personally think he is, because you got to think about it. You have the third-party vote, and you have the fact that Biden is doing way worse with Hispanics, and Trump's actually gaining support with Hispanics. Like, with African Americans, Biden's going to struggle with them because not as many black people are going to vote for him, not necessarily vote for Trump. But with Hispanics, Trump's actually gaining real momentum with them. Like, he's gaining a momentum with blacks a little bit, but he's gaining more with Hispanics 100%. And so when you kind of look at that demographic, you really see that Biden is really screwed. And with the whole TikTok ban thing, I think he's probably DOA. I think Trump more than likely beats him now. I think Trump definitely beats Biden at this point. I think it's going to be really hard. And for those who say, oh, the 13 keys to the White House, what is that looking like? Well, the problem with this is that, he's mostly been correct. The guy's been spot on, but the problem is that it's mostly a popular vote predictor, not necessarily a election predictor. Like, by the metrics of what should have happened, Trump theoretically should have won the popular vote in 2016. He should have, but he didn't. And what happened is that Bush, the popular vote was super close in 2000, so there was a little bit of room for statistical error. This guy had Gore winning the election, so he's been wrong once before, so it's not like he's had a perfect track record. And the problem with this election is that this is the first time that the model has seen. The problem with his model is that this was developed in the 80s. And now we're in a time where we have cell phones, where social media is a big factor. And there's a very big political polarization now. So his model may not work forever. It's been basically 90% right. He's even reverse engineered back to like 1860, and supposedly it's been right every single time, which is pretty insane. So supposedly, even back when Abraham Lincoln was the president, he's been able to get it right, which is very, very surprising. And so here's the thing. If you look at this, right? The midterm gains is false because Biden, they lost House seats. The whole meaning of the midterm gains is not necessarily the Senate. It's the incumbent party holds more seats in the House of Representatives than they did in the previous midterm. And that was not true because Republicans ended up getting more seats in the House. They retained it back. So that's false. No primary contest. Theoretically, RFK was a primary contest, but Dean Phillips is pulling a decent amount of the vote but for the sake of this, I'm going to put that it's true, that he doesn't really have one, because I feel like Alan Lichtman's probably going to put this as true. Incumbent seeking election is true. That's definitely true. No third party is false. And if he puts this as true, he's not being empirical, because RFK, if we look at the polling aggregate, if we look at it, he's leading by a lot. He's like, honestly, if he's gonna really be that dishonest about it, right now Trump is leading by 0.9 in the aggregate, so his leads decrease, but he's still leading though. That's the thing. And you have these two, not NBC, maybe not NBC News is an outlier, which it may even be, because for some reason they have Trump getting more support. More RFK votes come from Trump than Biden in this poll, and so is Maris. So that may be throwing the average off. But if you look at the individual state-by-state basis, Trump is up in Georgia by 6.3 in a five-way race. In Michigan, he is up by 1.9, right? He's up by 1.9 in Pennsylvania. Funny enough, Pennsylvania in the five-way race is actually his best state, believe it or not. He's actually up by more in Pennsylvania than he is in Michigan or Wisconsin, which is interesting. He's up by more. And funny enough, now Trump's average in Wisconsin has gone up to 2 points. It's gone up to 2 because they had a Trump plus 4 poll. So that's actually gone up. And here, he's up at 0.4. So Michigan and Pennsylvania's leads have gone down, but his Wisconsin polling lead has gone up. And this state tends to have the worst polling average out of the 3. So that's another thing, too. And right now, you see Michigan's a 3-point lead. Pennsylvania, Biden's ahead by a tiny bit. By a tiny, tiny bit. But theoretically, this is Trump's best state in the five-way race. And when you look at the national aggregate and you look at the five-way, Trump is still up by 0.9. So there is a third party in the mix, because this third party that supposedly, according to Alec Lichtman, doesn't exist, is getting 9.5%. And his rule that he set himself in 2016 was that if there's a candidate polling above 5%, there is considered to be a major third party candidate. That's what he said. He said that in 2016. I'm not pulling that shit out of my ass. He literally said this. So if he ends up putting this as true, he's literally defying his own model. He's defying his own model. So that's already here. Now, for whatever reason, a short-term economy says the economy is not in recession. Now, theoretically, it's not, but people are not very happy about the economy. So you could theoretically put this as true because we're not in a recession right now. Now, the problem with this is that he thinks that this is true. It says strong long-term economy is there. It says real per capita economic growth during the term equals or exceeds the mean growth during the previous 2 terms, which it's going to because inflation's going up, so everything's more expensive. So naturally, the GDP of the economy is going to theoretically go up if everything's more expensive because people are putting more money into it. So yeah, okay, fine, sure, woohoo. I posted my county map in an extra cool picture in Discord. I think you'll like it. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. If you could post them again, I would appreciate it because I know you posted the county map like a couple days ago. So if you could repost the county map and also repost the cool image, I would greatly appreciate it. And thank you for the 5, by the way. So let's say for now these are true, right? Which realistically they should be false, but whatever. Key major policy change. Biden has not passed anything that major. He just has not. He hasn't. Theoretically, according to Alan Lichtman, he says this key is true too, which no, just no. He has not passed any major healthcare reform. The only thing that he could have passed that you could say, okay, maybe is major is the student loan debt thing, which whatever, man. It's not it's not. It's just not. This true if the incumbent redirects the course of government or enacts major policy change that has broad effects on the country's commercial welfare or outlook. It does not matter whether the change is public or popular with the public, nor does it matter what ideology mold it was cast from. Well, even though if it's not public, if it's the change is popular with the public, I mean, this is a very subjective key. He can basically morph this to whatever he wants it to be, just like how I am. But based out of what he said, I mean, he thinks that Obamacare was a major policy change. So that's true. So based out of that metrics, like those big keystone policies, that's what he deducts, devises it as. And, you know, I mean, it is what it is. And then also with no social unrest, he has this key as true, which according to his definition, you could say it's true, but at the same time, not really, because you could also say that, okay, widespread violent unrest is happening because illegal immigrants are coming into the country unprompted and they're killing a bunch of people, and that's theoretically social unrest. You could say that there's theoretically social unrest because Biden has basically signed a TikTok ban. Like, it's very subjective. That key is also really subjective too. So this might be the first time where he's actually wrong. Like, he could be very wrong with this. He could be very wrong. Now, with no scandal, he says that there's no scandal for Biden, which we all know that's not true. But theoretically, since it's his son that has the thing and not him, that puts Biden in a better spot, and that makes the key not false. And since he hasn't been impeached, and he theoretically hasn't given this to any president except like Nixon, I don't even think he gave. I don't know if he gave this to Bill Clinton or not, 96, but I don't even think he did. And if you look at no military failure, for some reason he thinks this shit's true too. He thinks that that's true, which is ridiculous. I think there is a military failure. His military failure was Afghanistan. However, Alan Lichtman claims that Afghanistan is not a failure because the electorate's not going to remember it by the time of the election, which is the stupidest excuse I've ever heard. So, based out of this, and the main evidence that I'm going to say, despite the apparent failure of Afghanistan withdrawal, Lichtman surprisingly did not classify this key as false yet. I know the optics were bad for Afghanistan, but this is actually one of the more successful withdrawals despite the bad optics, and it's pretty much forgotten. Well, the problem with that, see this guy, it's he's not being genuine. He's not even using his own model correctly. The main proof that you could give that this was a military failure is that his approval rating went from positive to negative and has never gone back up since then. That's the main proof. Yeah, exactly, Frankie Jr. That's literally what I was about to say. The whole reason why his approval rating from positive to negative was because of Afghanistan. That literally shifted the entire optics for the administration. So the fact that he's trying to claim that it's a forgotten thing, which of course the electorate is not, Afghanistan draw, it is not the number one issue for voters. Like, he may be right about that, but the whole reason why he went from positive to negative is because of the Afghanistan withdrawal. He also said that he also thinks that this is a failure, which that's correct. He's definitely had no success. Charismatic incumbent, that is definitely not true. However, and then he says uncharismatic challenger, he says that's true, which theoretically Trump, according to psychologists, depending on how you look at it, is theoretically a charismatic person, but the way he defines it is that it has to be a national hero of sorts, and the only keys he's given this to is Obama, McCain, and Reagan. These are the only times he's given these keys to these candidates. I don't even think Bill Clinton got those keys. So he's rarely giving it out. So based off of that, you could say, okay, well, the true key may be, but it may be true. It says the challenging party candidate is not charismatic or a national hero. You could theoretically say it's true because based off of the way he does it. But based off the way he says this is definitely not true. This is definitely not true. Look, he even labeled Biden as uncharismatic for the 2020 election. He said Biden is a decent, empathetic person, which that's also really subjective. I mean, he could be, but that's very subjective. But he's not inspirational or charismatic. Frankie Jr., I understand that I understand that Trump is charismatic, and I agree with that. But even in 2020, Trump labeled as uncharismatic for 2020. He said Trump is a great showman, but only appeals to a narrow slice of the American people, which is technically true. Trump does not appeal to the majority of Americans, at least out of recent exit polling and polling data. He really does not. If Trump was ahead nationally by 20 points, we could have a different discussion, but it's just a big no. And here he said that Biden, it does not have a scandal because the impeachment key hasn't come up and the impeachment hasn't gone through, and that, you know, like it hasn't triggered it. This key is false. He says, Lichtman says regarding the pro-Palestine rallies, there has to be a big enough social protest to really call in question the stability of the country, and these rallies have not come close. But the problem with this is that this is also very subjective. Why is he only looking at that? Why is he not looking at the fact that there's people being killed by illegal immigrants on a somewhat consistent basis? It's not happening every single day to the point where the country has gone down on a national emergency, like a state of emergency type thing. But there's enough for you to kind of make an argument that this could be a false key. It could be. Lichtman has implied that the key is true. There's already locked in for the White House party. All those policy changes I mentioned, plus the executive orders of overturning a lot of things Trump has done in office. But, see, like, that's the problem. Like, how is this going to help Biden? His approval rating has gone down from the things he's done, not up. And even though he says whether or not it's popular or not, he says that if it's true, it's still going to help him. He says that the key is likely true. So he hasn't for sure said that this is true or not. So it could be false. And this one could be false as well. We don't know. And look at this. He says that there's an exception to the key, and that is that whether the third-party candidate is a clear split within the opposition, is clear what RFK is. But he has said specifically before, look, they literally said this. If this key is false, if a third-party candidate is likely to win 5% or more of the popular vote. And now he's magically saying out of nowhere that, now for some reason RFK is an exception because he actually hurts Biden more than Trump, which is what most polling data has suggested. So this is the problem with this model. He's being very not subjective with this at all. I'd say the first these three keys are true. I'd say that these are true for sure. These are definitely true. These all three I say are spot on. This he's got it wrong. He said something about this, and he says that he's fading away, which I think I think RFK. We're 6.5 months away, and RFK is polling at 9%. I don't necessarily think he's a fading third-party candidate. I don't think it is. And for some reason, like, he thinks it's not going to flip, but I think it is. I think RFK is going to be able to get 5% polling-wise. I think he will be able to pull at 5. And strong short-term incumbent. This, based on his model, I'd say that these are correct. He has this as true. So according to him, he has, this is theoretically a toss-up for whatever reason. Like, he has this as a toss-up. He has this as a toss-up. He has this as true. I don't know why. I don't know why he has this as true, but he just does. And he has this as true. He has this as true. Or at least undecided. I think he has this undecided. He says that this is technically undecided. So according to him, he already has Biden winning the election based off of this, which is, I think, is completely incorrect. In reality, you could say that all of these are theoretically the toss-up keys. And more than likely, I'd honestly say that this is definitely false. I think this is false. I think this is false. And I think this is false. So just out of those keys, and I think that this is false too. And maybe these are true, maybe, but so that's the problem. And the model hasn't taken into account social media, hasn't taken into account a bunch of things. So even if Lichtman has Biden winning the election or has him winning due to the model, I can't see, you can't go based off of that. You used an election model where the Democrats were winning Utah by 1.4%. What kind of swings were you applying? Like, how did you weigh your model? Because that doesn't make sense. Thank you, Flamey Bird Drake. I appreciate that. Guys, I will be going soon. In like a couple minutes, I will be going in a bit. So, just FYI. I will be going in a second, but I did have to do a discussion about this because I felt like it was fairly important too. But yeah, as of right now, I think that he's pretty DOA. I think he might actually be DOA now. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I really don't. It's hard, but at the same time, I personally think he's very DOA. I think he's screwed. He's even polling below. He's polling below H.W. Bush and Jimmy Carter at this point in the presidency. Biden has a lower approval rating than both of them right now from that while back. Like, this day during Jimmy Carter's presidency, he was actually at like 46, and H.W. Bush was like at 40, or I think it was H.W. Bush was at 46 and Carter was like at 43 and Biden's at 42. So he's doing worse than, or it was, one of them was flipped, but I know one of them was at 46, one of them was at 47. It was something, or one of them was at 46, one of them was at 43. But Biden is below both of them. So, like, I mean, yeah. So, let's see. This county map that this guy posted in here. So, do you have Arizona going to Biden? Because it looks like it. Nevada may be a toss-up. I think Trump's winning Wisconsin on here. I think maybe he's getting close in Michigan. And I think he's got him winning Pennsylvania. So this guy has Trump winning the election, I think. And in Georgia, it's kind of hard to tell, but I would assume Georgia's a Republican victory for Trump. So he has Trump winning based off his county map. I just don't know I don't know where he has Nevada, Arizona, and Michigan at. That I'm having a hard time depicting based off of the county map. I'm kind of having a hard time depicting whether or not he has him winning there. Maybe he doesn't. Um, do you think Puerto Rico will ever become a state? It depends on how far the Democratic Party goes. It really does. It depends on that. I think anything can happen, but I just don't know what will happen. What can happen to have Biden change the tide? I don't think he can do anything at this point. I don't think he can. I think it's just Biden is set too high of an expectation for himself for the electorate. And what's funny is that if he does the right thing, like close the border and does a bunch of stuff, it actually he will lose the election even more because his base will fall out and Republicans will still not like him anyway. So it's like a lose-lose. So what's actually quite funny is that if he were to do all the things Trump did and just go like full haywire and just kind of reverse everything, he'd actually lose support and not even gain support from Trump supporters. Maybe he gained like 1% with Trump, or maybe even 2-3%, but he would still not, he would lose so much of his base that he would just be doomed either way. So it's not like he can, it's definitely not like he can just, magically do something to fix it. My model has Trump winning Wisconsin by 9.7, Michigan by 7 points, and Nevada by 7, Arizona. Biden winning Arizona by 5? Okay, I don't know about that, man. That's really weird. So you have Trump winning the Rust Belt, or at least Michigan and, not Michigan, Wisconsin by 10, Michigan by 8, Nevada by 7, but Arizona, we're going in for Biden by 5? That makes no sense. Biden would have to be doing really good with female and white voters to be doing that, but do really bad with Hispanics to be losing all the other states and even African American voters. So thank Maricopa County for that. I don't think that Nevada and Arizona are going to vote that far off from each other. I don't think so, because the electorates there are kind of similar. Arizona has more white voters for the most part, like a little bit more, and they tend to lean more Democratic. Or at least more. They're more rhino than before, but that's about it. But they're kind of similar. Prediction for Michigan U.S. Senate. I mean, if Trump's winning Arizona by a few points, I think it just flips automatically, especially since it's an open seat. And Mike Rogers seems to be like not the worst candidate in the world. He's not the best, but he's definitely not the worst. Like if he wins the primary, he'll definitely be one of the better ones for sure. Like he'll be better than Dave McCormick for sure. That's not even a question. So, guys, as of right now, that's pretty much it for the stream. I kind of just wanted to talk about the whole TikTok ban thing and how that basically puts Biden in DOA territory for 2024. I know a lot of you are not going to agree with this. Actually, you know what? Let's see. I'm actually going to do a poll. Who thinks Biden is DOA, dead on arrival, in 2024? I actually want to see what chat mostly thinks. I actually want to see this because I think he is now. Let's see. I actually want to. I want to see what chat has to say. So if whoever's in chat, if you want to vote on this, go ahead and do that because I'm actually really curious to see what you guys think. So it seems like a majority of you guys think that, at least the 13 people who've responded out of 53 people, it seems like a lot of you guys think Biden's DOA. Okay. By the way, if you guys are new and you have not subscribed, make sure to hit the subscribe button. If you could do that, I would greatly appreciate. So make sure to go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Make sure to if you haven't liked the video as well, make sure to do that too. And if you do subscribe, hit post bell notifications so you get notifications to all my videos as well. So out of the 17 people who responded, it seems like an overwhelming majority of you guys think that he's DOA. I was on the no side for a while, but I think right now he's on the DOA side for sure. I think he is. I think he truly is now. Because now he's definitely guaranteeing he's going to crater with one of the demographics. Because the thing is, even though polling was bad, I didn't have the political instinct to think that he would collapse completely with any demographic. But now that he signed this TikTok ban bill, even if TikTok figures it out and they don't get banned, the fact Biden did it is still going to sting a lot of people, and any little support lost is still going to be a problem. That's the thing. Biden needed a big win in 2020. Biden needed to win the electoral college by like 350 electoral votes. Like, let's talk elections. How did that? He needed to win. Biden needed that victory in 2020. He needed that North Carolina, Georgia, Florida. Like, he needed that. He needed Nebraska. He needed Nebraska's first. He needed Maine's first. Like, he needed this win. He needed this, but he didn't get it. And that's the problem. If Biden would have gotten this, we'd be having a completely different conversation right now. I'd be saying that the election would still be close. And I would, honestly, if this was a result in 2020, I would even say Trump probably doesn't even get over 300 electoral votes. Like, I would probably have the election very close. I wouldn't even think that he'd have a chance at winning Nevada or even Michigan. I wouldn't even think Trump would have a chance of that at all. And so looking at this now, like, I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, Trump could have gotten destroyed. And if the TikTok ban happened now with this result, I'd say, okay, well, Biden's going to collapse with the group, but that doesn't guarantee his loss, because if Biden had won by this much, he would have already been doing really well with senior voters and would have won young voters by a lot more, and every demographic by a lot more in order for this to happen. More than likely, if he would have done that, he probably would have won this too. So he would have probably won Texas as well. So if he had a landslide victory, I more than likely would not be seeing his DOA. But since his victory was so small in terms of the electoral college margin and the actual vote counts in every state, that is the problem. Like, if he would have won the Rust Belt by a likely margin, I'd be saying it's going to be a really hard battle for Trump, but he's got a shot. I wouldn't be saying Biden's DOA. But as of right now, I am saying Biden's DOA because the result in 2020 was just too close. The same way that Trump had a way too close of a victory. Trump also needed a really big win in 2016 to have a mandate for 2020. He needed a big win, but he didn't get it, which was also expected. Now, Trump needs to get the landslide victory. If he wants Republicans to have an easy 2028 cycle, like if he wants Republicans to be taken seriously in 2028, he needs to win the Electoral College by a lot. He has to. Because if not, Trump's going to have the Republicans are going to have a hard time in 2028. They're going to have a difficult time because they're going to be going through an identity crisis. That's the problem with the Republicans in 28. If Vivek doesn't run, Democrats are going to have the upper hand on Republicans because by then they would have figured out their 2028 nominee. They probably would have had Newsom doing interview for like a year and a half at that point. Biden would probably be behind Newsom at that point. Republicans would be going through an identity crisis, unless they nominate Vivek, which will kind of lessen that effect a lot more. But Republicans going through an identity crisis after 3 cycles of Trump is going to make their electoral prospects a lot more dire. Like, I'd say that Republicans might be DOA in 28, just because they probably wouldn't even win the Rust Belt. I don't think so. But it really depends on Trump's margin of victory and what Trump's approval rating is by then. Because let's say Trump wins a narrow victory, but Trump ends up becoming like a super popular president theoretically. Like, let's say Trump ends up getting in the positives in national favorability when he leaves office. If he's polling at like +5 even nationally, I'd say that Republicans have a pretty good shot at winning 28, because at that point he'd be up by 5 in the national popular, like he'd be favored by 5 points. If he really was, then I think that he probably, if the Republican nominee just kind of sticks by Trump, they probably end up winning the election. That's what I think would happen. And the bench is not looking good for Republicans, for Democrats either, because they have Harris, they have AOC, they have Whitmer, which I think is overrated. They have Newsom, which is very not liked. You know, he actually pulls the worst out of any of the candidates I just said. So it's not looking good for Democrats in the future. I mean, Republicans are not looking that good either, because their bench is not necessarily that great at all either. I actually say that 2028 or 2032 would be the perfect time for RFK to run. I think this was a bad year for RFK to run because there's people that want to elect Trump. Yeah, it's actually quite funny, but if Haley would have been the nominee this cycle, I actually think that RFK could have gotten a couple of states. He probably could have won a few electoral votes. There are some polls where RFK was legitimately getting like second place in. He was actually getting like second place in some states. I probably would have had RFK winning Utah. He probably would have won Alaska. He probably would have won Maine. He probably would have won Maine at large and Maine's first. He'd probably, Biden would more than likely be winning North Carolina. He'd be winning Florida probably. Texas is iffy, but I'd say that she probably holds on to it. But I say this was probably the map. If Biden was the nominee, I think Biden would have won easily against Nikki Haley. Maybe not Florida. Maybe he would have gotten everything else and gotten North Carolina. But I think RFK could have taken a couple of states. And if RFK was getting second place nationally, RFK would probably be winning New Hampshire. He'd probably be winning like Montana maybe. He'd probably be getting like some of the, maybe the Dakotas, maybe Missouri would be a state he'd win. He'd probably be ahead in New Mexico even. He'd probably be winning Nevada. He'd be winning, he'd probably be winning like, maybe not any of these, but he'd definitely be winning a few more. He'd be winning a couple of more states. Like, Biden would still win the Electoral College decisively, but RFK would definitely make an impact. Now, if the nominee is like Harris and Haley, that would be bad, because then RFK would kind of enter the territory of actually being in striking distance of winning the Electoral College. And if that were to be the case, his path to victory would essentially be just destroy Harris. Just make her seem like the inferior Democratic nominee and take her support. I think if Harris and Haley is the matchup and RFK runs again, I genuinely think that this is the toss-up map. I genuinely think that the toss-up map would more than likely look something like this. This is like an expanded battleground map. And there's even states where RFK, I would say, is 100% guaranteed to win them too. I think he'd be completely guaranteed to win all of Maine. He'd win Nebraska second off the bat. I'd even have him open to winning Nebraska at large. I think that Illinois would be up for grabs. I think he would be behind in Vermont, Massachusetts, D.C. Maryland, I actually think would be a state he may even be able to pick up. I think in terms of some of the swing states, he'd be winning Indiana, he'd be winning Kansas right out the gate, Montana, he would be winning New Mexico, Nevada. I think he gets Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina out of the gate. And so I'd also say he gets Virginia, he gets New Hampshire, he gets Minnesota automatically. Maybe not Indiana, but if you look at this expanded battleground map, he's looking at a pretty good spot. He's looking pretty strong, and if he were to get Texas and Florida, that seriously bolsters his chances of hitting 270. That would definitely get him closer to there. If he wants to get to 270 right out the gate, he'd have to win everything that I've already listed and win Texas and Florida. He'd have to win Ohio and New York, and then from here he can kind of play mix and match. At that point, he could kind of play like a little game of mix and match. Maybe he'd have to win New Jersey first because it's less Democratic than New York. So maybe he's at 250. And then from here, you could say, okay, maybe he could try to get Indiana. Or at this point, maybe he would already have Iowa. And at this point, then from here, he'd probably have South Carolina too. So then from here, he could probably play mix match. Probably. He could probably mix match some votes from here. It would depend on the electorate that day. So I'd say he should try to shoot for at least something. Definitely Rhode Island would not get him there. I'd say reaching for Oregon would be his best chance because they are sort of open to third-party candidates, and it's one of the closer states out of all the ones that I have on the expanded battleground map. So in 2028, if RFK runs against Haley and Harris, I think he actually has a pretty good shot at winning the Electoral College. Is he guaranteed it? Absolutely not, but I think RFK could win as a third party. If that's the matchup, I think he can 100%. I think he'd 100% be able to win the election. I think he'd have a realistic shot at winning. I think he would. I think he'd have a realistic shot at doing it. So, do you think Dave McCormick will win the U.S. Senate race in Pennsylvania? No, I don't think so. I think he's going to lose it. I think he probably ends up losing it by a few points. Even if Trump does really well there, I think that he's going to severely underperform Trump. But anyway, guys, that's it for this stream. If you guys are new, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Make sure to hit the like button. Make sure to hit the post notification bell. Follow Twitter and join the Discord in the description down below. Tomorrow, I may do like a little bit of an update stream, but I will not be able to record tomorrow because I do have finals. So I hope you guys have a great